If you watched my previous video on the subject, then you'll know I'm a longtime fan of Star Fox for the Super Nintendo. While I played and dabbled in Star Fox 64 when it was brand new, I lacked the N64 capable of playing it on the regular and never developed a proper appreciation for it as a sequel. I recommend watching that previous video if you'd like more context into my newfound enjoyment of this nearly 30-year-old game. Needless to say, this means that most of my familiarity with Star Fox 64 came from playing it this June for recording and analysis. I never even earned any medals, was completely unaware that the expert difficulty was a thing on the original cartridge, and haven't memorized every little secret like many other graybeards my age have. However, I think that puts me in a unique position to discuss this latest remake, as I won't be clouded by the same nostalgia as so many others will. I won't have knee-jerk negative reactions to certain things just because they're different, nor will I pog-face at every familiar thing. Really, my biggest question going into this is, why a remake? Why now? Does this remake both live up to the legacy of the original while taking the opportunity to refine or improve upon it? Well, the answer is a mixed bag. Let's start with something pedantic.
Arwing's introductory training module. Here, you'll learn to maneuver your craft.
Now, the default controls aren't awful. In fact, most people will probably think they're fine or good controls. However, in the year of our Lord 2026, you'd think there'd be more control options than there were in the original game. The original Super Nintendo game. Instead, you only have the option to invert the axes, enable the original U-turn and somersault button combinations, or to use the Joy-Con mouse controls. There's no button remapping available at all. I know for some this may seem like a nitpick, but when I played through Star Fox 64 on Nintendo Switch Online, being able to swap brake and boost to the left and right triggers respectively was a major improvement for me. It felt far more intuitive, and those somersault and U-turn button combinations became far easier to pull off. I know this button remapping wasn't available in the original, in that I could only do it with a Nintendo Switch Online interface, but it made such a difference that I couldn't imagine them making a new Star Fox without more options like this available. Yet here we are, absolutely missing functionality that they even had some semblance of in 1993. There's also a lack of gyro aiming, which is just unusual considering how many games Nintendo has shoehorned such controls into. I'm not a gyro guy myself, and I understand being gun-shy about it after the disaster of Star Fox Zero, but this is a game where such aiming functionality would make sense. Star Fox Zero's problem wasn't that it utilized gyro aiming, it was how it split that aiming up between two perspectives. Built with a singular perspective in mind, gyro would work better. What's more, I'm hardly qualified to be discussing topics like accessibility as I have full capability of my limbs and digits, but I feel like button remapping is the absolute bare minimum requirement to at least be somewhat accessible for the demographic of players it would benefit. To be clear, the default controls aren't bad, so to speak, no worse than any other prior Star Fox game at least. As I said though, it's the year 2026, and there's no reason not to allow players to modify their controls at least a little bit, especially when there are obvious adjustments that could easily be perceived as preferable. You know, like mapping brake and boost to the L and R triggers. This limitation of options just feels like a typical example of Nintendo insisting they know what's fun for you better than you do.
What's this? A swarm of lowly flies.
I'm going to admit, I don't mind the new voices for the main voice cast. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, this is the best Slippy has sounded since he was croaking in chiptune. I don't mind how they look either. Perhaps it's just my preference, but I've never really been partial to any of their 3D renders outside of certain Smash Bros. Depictions. I grew up with the promotional puppets of the Super Nintendo game, and to me, that was always the definitive look. These new designs are far closer to what I consider the definitive appearance than any other. In regards to voice performance, each character feels cast for the cutscenes more than the gameplay, as there's a distinct sanding off of edges that mitigates the sense of danger in this remake. While Star Fox 64 certainly has a Saturday morning cartoon feel to it, there's even less sense of lives being in danger in the new game.
Cover me while I fine-tune my sensor. Oh, you got him? Thanks, Fox.
It sounds more like an inconvenience than someone trying to actively kill Slippy. Perhaps you could try to argue that Slippy, in particular, isn't mature or grounded enough yet to realize what kind of situation they're all in, but this rings true even for other performances, including when your comrade's R-Wings are too far gone.
My R-Wing can't take it!
My R-Wing's falling apart.
I've had enough.
As I said, even the original had a cartoony tone to it, but they've downgraded that sense of danger rather than at least maintained it. There's nowhere this is more true than the various boss performances. The new Rogues Gallery feels far more generic, and any comparison to their originals tends to be a significant downgrade. One of the best comparisons is the boss of Meteo. The original voice actor sounds conceited and smug.
You're more cunning than I thought. I've underestimated you.
The new one just sounds melodramatic and hammy.
You're more cunning than I thought. I underestimated you.
In the original, he sounds like his insult comes with rising irritation and the loss of patience.
You're not as stupid as you look!
In the remake, he doesn't sound like his facade is cracking nearly as much.
You're not as stupid as you look!
You can tell the new voice actor is trying to deliver his final line with the same kind of hamminess, but the pride and anger just isn't there. It doesn't feel like he actually looked down upon Team Star Fox like he did in the original.
I can't believe I lost to this scum!
I can't believe I lost to this scum!
However, at least he is trying to do something with the role, even if it fails to measure up to the original. A lot of these bosses are just forgettable in comparison to their original counterparts, with perhaps the greatest downgrade being the conductor of the train on Macbeth. The original performance had a unique voice that seemed cast specifically for the role of a train conductor, first and foremost. None of the other bosses sounded like he did, and he had a way of perceiving Fox and his crew that spoke to his brand of conceit.
Get from little hyenas now. What's wrong? Come a little closer.
Once again, though, let us compare the sound of their defeat. The original voice actor is putting his all into it, as if he's afraid of what's about to happen to him, and the new guy just doesn't sound like he's putting any real feeling into it.
No! Give them place! I say, stop it!
No, wait! Hit the brakes! I can't stop it!
As I said before, I don't really have nostalgia for these original performances and voice lines. I may recall my childhood friend reciting some of them, but they were primarily Peppy's and Leon's lines. These bosses were unfamiliar, and yet they became pretty iconic very swiftly as I played Star Fox 64 this June. While I can't say all of the bosses in the original game are particularly memorable, they certainly stood out far more than the current offering.
Someone wants to play.
So someone wants to play.
Deploy all units. Charge! I've got a present for you.
All units, attack! Target lock them! Destroy them!
Don't party just yet. It's time to try our new weapon.
Don't party just yet! I challenge you to combat, Star Fox!
I'll take you guys out from the ship.
This is an honorable defeat!
The thing is, this may not necessarily be the fault of the performers, but the person directing. Even if you don't want your new actor to try and imitate, say, the conductor's final freakout precisely, you should be able to inform the performer of the panic and desperation they're feeling at the time, that the train is heading directly for a collision, to imagine the character yanking on every brake possible. Get something more than just...
I can't stop it!
Starwolf is a bit more of a mixed bag for me. I don't think they're all a downgrade, and in fact, I think the new Pigma is an improvement that really fits the character. In a game where everyone sounds less threatening, he sounds like he has a real mocking tone and vendetta towards Peppy.
Too bad Dad's not here to see you fail. I'll do you fast, Peppy, old pal. Come on, little man. Shoot me. Peppy, long time no see.
Peppy! Long time no see! You're not getting away this time, Peppy, old pal! But my reward! Ah! Too bad Dad's not here to see you crash and burn! I'm gonna bust you up real good!
Simultaneously, while Andrew's personality has completely shifted, I can't say I'm completely against it. Originally, he just sounded like some punk kid that put on a tough front but was, in reality, a total weakling.
Andross's enemy is my enemy. Stick to the pond, Froggy. We'll make sure you never reach Andross. Give it up! You can't win! You're not welcome here! Uncle Andross!
The new Andrew instead sounds like a spoiled, silver-spooned rich kid whose arrogance is completely unearned. The character is effectively different, but it's an interpretation that at least feeds into his status as Andross's nephew, and the nepotism that bought his position.
Emperor Andross's enemy is my enemy. Stick to the pond, Froggy. Scared, Fox? You should be. This is as close as you'll get to the Emperor. The Emperor won't be happy if you shoot me. Uncle Andross won't fall so easily.
Leon, however, is a casualty. The new voice actor technically does a good job, but only in that he now sounds like an evil reptile. The original Leon was an ace pilot to parallel Falco, only where Falco was a streetwise prodigious pilot on Team Star Fox, Leon comes off as highly educated and even pretentious. They're both prideful characters, but that pride comes out in different ways.
Andross has ordered us to take you down. You're not as tough as I thought. It can't be happening! Let's see how you handle our new ships. I am the great Leon!
Now, on the other hand, Leon's just a reptile.
Andross sent us. He doesn't mind if I make a mess. Annoying bird. I'll enjoy plucking your feathers. If you shoot, you better not miss. This can't be happening!
Whereas Andrew has a change in personality, he retains that core identity of being inexperienced and posturing. His new attitude fits someone that has bought into his uncle's self-proclamation as Emperor. Leon, on the other hand, retains nothing of what originally made him unique. That contrast of, say, Falco being the street kid that learned how to fight dirty, versus the upper-class fencer whose knowledge and skill is grounded in a set of rules and technique. If anything, he's been made more savage rather than refined.
I'll take my time picking you apart! Don't get too close! I bite!
I don't know why the writers or voice directors chose this direction for Leon, but I'd say it qualifies as character assassination. It's a full-blown downgrade. Lastly, there's Starwolf, which is where I have to make another confession that will anger my fellow graybeards. I find Starwolf completely uninteresting. I know so many others see him as iconic, so much so that there are bad puns turned into t-shirts sold at gaming conventions the past 15 or more years. I just don't see much personality in him compared to his other crewmen. Nevertheless, the new Starwolf isn't much better. This time, however, it's more of a trade-off, where the smarmy condescension and conceit of the original voice performance has been traded with a sinister, snarling performance.
Can't let you do that, Star Fox. You'll be seeing your dad soon, Fox. What the heck? Don't get too cocky, Star Fox. But I'm better.
Can't let you do that, Star Fox. It's dangerous to make me mad. Not so tough now, are you?
Bold moves, rookie. You learn that at your fancy school?
I guess what's missing from me is any sense of motivation. The original Leon was pompous, and thus it made sense that he'd target the ace of Team Star Fox, Falco Lombardi. That itself is character. Pigma always had that history as the traitor of Team Star Fox, and whose targeting of Peppy was effectively salt in the wound. The new Andrew highlights his nepotism more and, if anything, makes him more interesting than he had been previously. For Starwolf himself, maybe there's something in the Hollow Reviewer I've yet to unlock that describes some history between Wolf and Fox's father James, but in the context of both the original game and the remake, strictly sticking to gameplay interactions, Starwolf is just an evil rival to Fox McCloud. That's it, nothing more, nothing less. In regards to the remaining characters, comparing lines for General Pepper seems counterproductive as the role of the character has been completely changed. The original Pepper was over the top, but aside from briefings, there was nothing more to him than the good army hiring Star Fox to defeat the evil army. Now, however, there's a degree of tension between him and Star Fox due to his role as a military commander and their own as a mercenary unit. He's stiffened to the letter, and Fox and crew are young, reckless, except for Peppy, and enjoy poking the bear, or dog, as it were. I'll discuss more on his relation with Team Star Fox in a bit, but suffice it to say, this General Pepper is a better fit for the expanded role they've chosen. I imagine Bill is a downgrade for some, but he's another character I feel little regard for. He had a bit of a surfer style to his performance originally, but otherwise he felt forgettable. Then again, I guess that surfer style, whether it was good or fitting or not, is still more memorable than just sounding like a dude.
Cover the... Fox! That's one of ours! Enemy mothership approaching! Go for the 4 hatches on the underside! Looks like you could use some help, Fox. Still! Don't get too excited. Here we go!
Get these bogeys off us, then we'll catch up. On the horizon, what is that? You've got moves they never taught us at the Academy, Fox. Feeling the heat, Fox? Follow me. Bill, there's no way your ship can handle this. I owe you. My shields will hold long enough for me to pay you back.
I wasn't really sure how I felt about the new Andross, but I think perhaps he comes off a bit too hammy and less threatening. There was an understated confidence in the original Andross's line delivery, whereas he now sounds generically cackling.
I've been waiting for you, Star Fox. You know that I control the galaxy. It's foolish to come against me. You will die just like your father.
I've been waiting for you, Star Fox! You know that I control the galaxy! How very foolish to face me on your own! Are you so eager to repeat your father's mistakes?
The thing is, Andross has never been one of my favorite villains. Changing his voice performance doesn't make much of a difference as he doesn't have any dialogue to give him real depth. Anything that could make him interesting is in his backstory. Regardless of which game you're playing, Andross is an awfully generic villain. The question is whether you prefer the more sinister voice performance, which admittedly I do, or the hammy style. Lastly is Kat. I don't think there was a way they could handle Kat and not make someone angry. Her original personality as the token female was purely flirtatious.
We're closing in on them, Falco. Take the right one, Floyd. I have the left.
Cat, what are you doing here?
Is that any way to greet a girl? I've got somebody beautiful. I could kiss you for that. Are you gonna hug all the fun?
Cat, can't you go bother someone else?
Let me help you out.
I really don't want to get into specifics, but I hope people can understand why Nintendo might be hesitant to make the only female character in the whole game an overly flirtatious bundle of pink fur. As such, they redesigned her to look more ferocious, with bits of pink to highlight certain features, but not going overboard. They tried to retain some of that flirtatious attitude with Falco in particular, but it's not over the top. It's more subtle, and could easily be perceived as a friend ribbing another as much as it might be romantic interest.
Looks like you could use a hand, Falco! I'll target the lights on the left. You guys go right.
Cat, what are you doing here?
I wanted to meet your new gang. I've got somebody on my tail. Thanks. Falco could learn a thing or two from you. Nice little flock you've got here, Lombardi. You built a good crew, Fox. Take care of them.
I don't mind this adjustment to Cat, and I understand why Nintendo would do it. However, I don't have any particular attachment to the original version of Cat either. I think the developers did what they could to maintain the original relationship between her and Falco, which is what's most important. Nonetheless, the most common pattern seen with a lot of these performers is that they're less exaggerated voices. Performances weren't always hammy on the N64, but they were unique through the exaggeration of the character through the performance. Characters like Cat are now so down to earth that even if I understand the adjustment, there's nothing to make Cat sound unique. To summarize my thoughts on this topic, if this were a brand new video game and not a remake, then these voice lines would be fine. Just fine. However, just fine is the problem, as a lot of those performances in 1997 did so much heavy lifting to create the character. Star Fox 64 did a lot with a little, and the remake regresses in that regard to provide uninspiring performances. That said, is it possible some of these lines and characters will make an impact on the next generation? I can see younger players imitating the likes of the new Leon, even if he's a completely different personality. However, I don't think today's younger players will find as much to grasp onto as children had nearly 30 years ago, which is no doubt why so many are unhappy with the voice performances of this remake. Or to put it another way, I don't think many of these performances will be considered iconic for those being introduced to Star Fox for the first time through this remake.
A real team.
Last I checked, a real team needs a real leader.
The new cutscenes are a bit of an odd inclusion. The manner in which you progress through Star Fox hasn't changed since the N64 original. Depending on how you completed the last level, you'll have one or a choice of two levels to proceed to. Whereas previously you'd just be given a simple briefing for the level of your choice, there's now an entire cinematic that attempts to deepen the characters, their relationships, and interpret everything in a more traditional narrative format. However, due to how dynamic each route can be, there's no actual connective tissue, no proper character arcs from scene to scene. For example, at the start, it seems as if Peppy is trying to hammer home an idea that the crew needs to improve their teamwork. Fox brushes it off, and in particular seems insistent on doing things differently from his father. Is there a particular reason? What does he really think of his dad? What's the motivation for wanting to forge his own path despite carrying on his father's name? Well, you get some hint in the Holo Viewer, but otherwise the cutscenes don't really address it. Similarly, there's no actual conflict in regards to working as a team. In a traditional narrative, establishing these things indicates that they will become a core obstacle the characters must overcome in order to defeat Andross. At most, you get conflict between Fox and Pepper should Slippy fall to the surface of Titania, spilling generic "we don't leave a team member behind" dialogue from their mouths. Effectively, these cutscenes do little to feel like there's a proper story beyond the simple objective of defeating Andross. You can skip each one and it'll be no different than when you played on the Nintendo 64. Nonetheless, I still find the inclusion of these cutscenes interesting. They're a curious experiment into what future Star Fox games could look like. After completing a mission, so long as you finish with a mission accomplished message indicating you got the best result or route, the next cutscene will be written to present your options for the next level as tactical choices. General Pepper may desire for Team Star Fox to go to a certain level, while certain members of the team may wish to check out other planets. It's all window dressing, providing decoration to what is effectively a choice between a harder or easier level, but it's a concept with potential should it be carried forward into a future game. I'm again reminded of Star Fox 2 and the manner in which Andross was sending multiple enemy forces to Corneria at once. If these tactical choices actually mattered, if your choice in one route impacted other fronts across the war, then it could create real consequences beyond wanting to play the harder or easier level. More so, the relationship between Team Star Fox and General Pepper is given greater texture here than before. Fox McCloud and company clearly don't perceive the Carnarian army as a singular good, sometimes clashing with their military client in smarmy, hotshot attitudes, or with the aforementioned heat regarding abandoning a companion. This may sound strange, but I'm actually somewhat envious of what Velan Studios was able to do here with Star Fox compared to what Nintendo will permit or do with Metroid. Fox is allowed to be a mercenary, and he's allowed to occasionally be antagonistic with General Pepper. We've yet to see that kind of dynamic between Samus and the Galactic Federation. For Star Fox, it allows for greater potential thematic exploration in future entries should they explore it further. In addition, while I wouldn't say the Hollow Viewers lore editions are groundbreaking or spectacular, they're far more interesting and engaging than anything in the logbook of Metroid Prime 4 beyond. Star Fox, a game that's never really been about its story or lore, has greater improvements to its writing than the latest downgrade of the Metroid franchise. If Velan Studios can be given consistent creative freedom, or consistently good creative direction, then I feel like the next Star Fox could finally be the long-awaited sequel many fans could be craving, narratively at least. Probably mechanically too, considering how fun this remake is.
Watch your tail, Fox!
It's really hard to discuss the changes to the Star Fox 64 remake without sounding negative, in part because everything that is good is the stuff that was already good in the original. Additionally, some of the adjustments made have only served to make the game easier. To some, this won't matter or will even be seen as beneficial. To me, I'd have liked a few more difficulty options to customize or choose from since nothing feels quite Goldilocks. However, this is, for all intents and purposes, a better version of Star Fox 64 mechanically. Gripe about the voice acting all you want, the lack of control options, or some of its adjustments to decrease difficulty, the greatest reason the game feels easier is simply because it is more polished, responsive, and has greater visual clarity. This is the best Star Fox has ever felt, and considering how faithfully recreated these levels and enemies are, it's naturally going to be easier if the controls work better. However, that's not to say the game is robbed of all of its challenges. I still face difficulty against the Area 6 boss, for example, and even my first time facing the boss on Solar. The new dark lighting on Aquas might actually make the level more challenging than it was originally. The most significant change, however, is that restarting a level, or restarting at a checkpoint, doesn't cost a life. There's no consequence to restarting a level to avoid disadvantages such as a busted wing. It should also be said that the final form of Andross has been modified. Rather than teleporting behind you to chase you down, requiring a specially timed somersault to get around, Andross will now teleport across the arena and offer a limited window with which to blast the base of his brain. The fight was already not very good, as it felt too particular in its requirements and precision to be truly skill-based. Instead of fixing it into a properly challenging fight, however, they just made it easier. For those that get too familiar and too good with the normal difficulty, Expert difficulty offers the same challenge as the original, minus the previous adjustment to retries. Any collision with another object will instantly break your wing, and thus rob you of your laser upgrades. This can admittedly get frustrating, but it's as frustrating as it would have been originally. Which is where I wish there could have been some optional modifications put in. Be it customizable difficulty or an extra layer between normal and expert, I'd have loved more enemies that deal more damage and perhaps even higher requirements for the medals, but not include the ridiculous wing fragility. I want something more challenging, but not frustrating. If the challenges themselves are expected to fill that void, well, they're alright, but not really what I think most players would be looking for. Each level has a series of sub-objectives to complete, and while it's clearly possible to complete them all in one go for some planets, others will require multiple separate attempts. The difficulty of these objectives range from a reasonable trial to outright perfection, and thus a player's willingness in partaking is bound to depend on your personal patience and desire to unlock the optional cosmetic and lore items. It helps increase the potential longevity of the game, the amount of time a player will have to dedicate to clear it fully, but it's not as satisfying as a well-adjusted Goldilocks difficulty would provide for a campaign run. Again, however, I only seem so negative because there's nothing much to really say on the positive without simply reviewing Star Fox 64 again. Velan Studios did a good job keeping the game mechanically consistent, refining an already good experience to feel better and be just as enjoyable as before. The slight modifications to make it just a smidge easier do not invalidate the fun that there is to be had. This is unquestionably a faithful adaptation of the game's mechanics, and is the best Star Fox has been in a long time.
Sorry to chat, but we've got places to be.
I know this video comes off as negative. It probably sounds like I dislike the new Star Fox. In truth, I enjoyed every bit I played of it, and I'll continue to play more of it. I'll chase down some of those challenges here and there, and I'll try to earn the medals on expert difficulty. I'll do these things because the game is fun, plain and simple. The thing is, being a remake, the game not only demands comparison to the original, but begs the question of what more could have been done. If you're going to remake Star Fox 64, what additions are you going to make? If you're going to make changes, are those changes an improvement or detriment? Why remake the game now, and for the Switch 2 instead of the original Switch? I already posited that one of the reasons is to introduce Star Fox to a new generation, and to prepare a new audience for both the inevitable movie and for the real sequel I believe they have in production. That's my theory, but I wonder now if this was also an effort to help Velan Studios prove they can make a Star Fox game. Kind of like how the Metroid Prime remaster was Retro Studios training to make a Metroid Prime game, training that ultimately proved a failure based on Prime 4 Beyond. This could easily have been a step to Velan Studios laying the groundwork for something new. Time can only tell, however. In terms of recommendations, I think this is worth it at the digital price of $50, but in terms of the full $60, that's up to you. I think there's enough value in here, but if you're really the sort of graybeard that can't stand this new voice acting, that you find it so bad it diminishes your enjoyment of the game, then I guess just keep playing Star Fox 64 on Nintendo Switch Online, or the 3DS version. If you've never played Star Fox before, and you are into this sort of arcade action, then it's an even easier recommendation. Either way, even if this is mechanically a good remake and Velan did a solid job, it is worth critiquing and comparing in the hopes that they can do even better next time. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again.